Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm glad you're here today. I looked at the car thermometer and it said 87 degrees, so kudos for you for getting out. I'm Jean Camo, Executive Director of LOWLINC, and I want to welcome all of you. I know we have some members here, if you want to raise your hand, volunteers, and some of you will raise your hand twice. I'd like to welcome our guests, if you want to share if you're a guest or visitor. All right, well, so glad you could join us. I
had my daughter.
Oh, okay, fabulous. Daughters are good.
Yeah, appropriate.
Okay, well, we're really excited about our presenter that we have today and our topic. You know, well, we have a lot of fun at LOWLINC. We do a lot of fun things, go on the minibus and go to the winery. We play bingo. We just really have a good time. And it's also important to us to be able to talk about some things that we don't always have an opportunity to talk about with others. And so through our speaker series, we hope to be able to prompt some of those discussions and also share information. So I also wanted to make sure that we tell you a little bit about some of the things that are coming up, but I think I'll wait till the end to go through those. I want to thank the Member Outreach Committee for hosting today's speaker series. A lot of times it's our Health and Wellness Committee, and we appreciate all they do as well. So at this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, and then we'll take questions at the end. So we're very happy to have Helen Henrich here today. She's a licensed clinical social worker with a master's degree in social work from VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. She's been working as a mental health counselor for 40 years, both in the community and in private practice. She specializes in treating adults with a wide range of challenges, including grief, trauma, and emotional issues. She serves as a volunteer facilitator for the Grief Support Group and Caregiver Support Group in the Celebrate community in Stafford County. She served for 4 years in the Peace Corps, and that was both in the Philippines and Jamaica. She's been married for 50 years. She has a grown son, a lovely daughter-in-law, and a 12-year-old granddaughter named Lily. So, all right, well, welcome, Helen, and let's see if I can get this set up for you.
This corner.
Just stuck in the corner.
There we go.
So thank you, Jean, and thank you so much for inviting me here to your lovely community. I really enjoyed the drive back through here. It was just gorgeous. And I really am honored to be here on Mental Health Month. And I've been doing mental health counseling a long time, and so I'm just really grateful to be here. I have developed a passion over my career for helping people who grieve. I've worked with children and adults on their grief journey. This work is especially meaningful to me. I've been on a grief journey too. I lost my father when I was 14 years old. He was only 41 and he died of a sudden heart attack. My mother was also only 41 and she lived until 88 and never remarried and grieved a really long time. And my sister and brother and I kind of lived in the shadow of that our whole life. And I have a deep respect for those who grieve, and I believe in hope, and I believe in love, and love never dies. Okay, let's see here. So I want to give credit to people that have influenced me, and probably my biggest professional mentor is Dr. Alan Wolfold, and he has written, believe it or not, 94 books.
Wow.
And they're on every kind of grief and loss. Most of them are small, but they're excellent. He is a wonderful guy. I've seen him talk twice. So many of my points are directly from him, and I would encourage you to, if you're interested in reading, he would be a great one to start with. So today I thought we'd get an overview of grief. I'm going to talk about anticipatory grief and caregiving demands and mental health. And I'm going to talk about grief and mourning and grief and mental health. And we're a small group, and we could have questions at the end, which of course we if you have some, but if you want to say something now, I mean, if there was 100 of you in here, then it'd be another story. But if something comes up and you're afraid you might not remember the question, or you really want to ask a question, just let me know, okay? All right. Okay, so grief follows loss. And there's lots of kinds of loss. There's some of them: income, careers, moving, loss of independence as we grow older, loss of our spouse, soulmate, loss of our child, grandchildren, siblings, parents, pets. But grief from death is not the same as grief from other losses. In fact, even different types of deaths are different from each other. There are many types of losses, and they all require an adjustment period. There are similar feelings that follow the loss of work, or the loss from a divorce, or the loss of a place we call home. Some of us have multiple losses that just pile up inside of us. One other thing I failed to mention was that, this is kind of emotional. It's an emotional talk. So if you get sad, that's to be expected, it's fine. This is a safe place. If you cry, that's fine. So if you want me to slow down, I will. I'll pace it down a little bit. But I know it's emotional, and it's emotional for me too. Okay. Grief is unique. It's universal and unique, both at the same time. Each person, each family, each relationship has its own history. We're all different. We all have our own journeys. We have our own choices, some made long ago and some more recently. We all have our own family history and family heritage. All right, hold on a second here. Grief is not an illness. It's a normal reaction to loss. Most of us attach with love and feel deep grief following our loss. Now, there are some people that, of course, don't attach very well. These are the ones we read about in the newspaper and stuff that decide they want to hurt others. They have some attachment problems. And so they don't grieve like we do. Most people grieve. Okay, anticipatory grief is the inner experience of expected loss. If someone is diagnosed with an illness, it's the diagnosis that's the pivot between health and not health. Normal feelings of anticipatory grief are denial, anger, fear, sadness, confusion, and anxiety. Anticipatory grief is the time of uncertainty and stress. It's the time of exhaustion, decisions, chores, misunderstanding, and isolation from friends. This is the time of small victories and big disappointments. It's a time to feel both grateful for what time is left and burdened with the duty in the time together. So if anyone in here is a caregiver or has been a caregiver or expects to be a caregiver, this is the time of anticipatory grief. Dementia is called the long goodbye. It's a slow process of losing the one you love and losing part of yourself at the same time. It's a time to feel guilty for wanting some relief, and it's time to feel pressure and afraid that if you're not constantly there, something bad will happen. So anticipatory grief and mental health. Here's the complications: anxiety, burnout, and depression. Now, burnout's not a diagnosis, but it's a symptom that is part of both anxiety and depression. So fear is the emotional response to a real or perceived threat. Anxiety is the anticipation of future threat. It involves muscle tension, hypervigilance, cautiousness, avoidance. So you feel it all over. It's not just in your mind. You're exhausted. You're tired. Anxiety involves nervousness and thoughts of not being good enough or capable enough to handle the demands of caregiving. Each task becomes a life and death endeavor. Caregivers avoid others and do not want to ask for help. Sometimes not asking for help is because your spouse doesn't want anyone else to take care of them. And it's also because what will others think of me if I'm not strong enough to manage this? Burnout is a feeling of being trapped, apathetic, numb, too tired to cry, self-critical, and angry. And depression is an illness. It includes much of what's already been stated, and it also includes sleep and appetite disturbances, hopelessness, lack of pleasure in usual activities, lack of mental clarity, exhaustion, and worthlessness. So depression is an illness. Anxiety is too. Anxiety is one of the most common mental health diagnoses in America. And depression follows up behind that. The beautiful part, and I'm going to just say this now, this is in my notes, is that they're both treatable. Lucky for us, we live in this time and place that the brain has been so carefully studied for 80, 70, 100 years. And there is treatment available. Okay, loving someone changes our life forever. Losing someone changes our life forever. And I put this one in here because if you're old enough to love, you are old enough to grieve. A lot of people think little kids can't grieve or they're too young. That's not true. If a baby is old enough to love, a baby is old enough to grieve. Okay, grief is a noun, mourning is a verb, and I'm sure you've heard that word. It's kind of an old word, but mourning is necessary for both the expression of your grief and for the healing to get started. And it takes time. However long it takes time. And it's time that's worth spending to express your grief. There's a story, this is straight from my colleague, Alan Wolfelt. There's a story that there was a blind boy who carried a flashlight. And everybody was wondering, why does a blind boy need a flashlight? That's kind of strange. So they asked him, what's with the flashlight? And he said, the flashlight's not for him, it's for the other people. So if he gets lost, they can find him. And as you're going through this journey of grief, you're going to need a flashlight to let people know, I need help. Now in the Jewish tradition, people wear black, or they used to. They wear black. They would wear it for a year. And that was a signal that I need help. Somebody please come up and ask me how I'm doing. Don't ignore me. I need people in my life. But that's not always the case. Talk about that. Normal grief is a wide range of feelings: sadness, exhaustion, anger, rage, fear, regret, guilt, despair. This is normal grief, not abnormal. There's no timetable or schedule to how long it takes. Grief takes all the time it needs. Mourning cannot be rushed. Normal grief requires tears, and lots of them, more than you even thought you ever had. It hurts physically, and with stomach cramps and headaches. You feel tired and you can't sleep. You're confused. Sometimes we talk to ourselves, sometimes we talk out loud to ourselves. We do not want to live without them. We're afraid that we cannot manage without them. We wonder, who am I? How did it go so quickly? I'm not ready for this. It's just not fair. Grief is sort of like having a hand in front of your face. And the more you can't see anything but the grief. And the more you talk about it, and the more you express it, and the more you reach out, the hand starts to pull away from you. And then suddenly you can see, oh, wow, look, life is out there. It becomes easier to manage. So in the beginning, you need time to be alone. It's kind of like going into exile for a little while, you know. You're just not ready for normal life. You're not ready for normal talk. You don't want small talk. You can't talk about the weather. You need time to be by yourself. So we're not ready for normal. We turn down invitations. We honor our time for space, solitude, and respite. It's an important time. And grief is painful. There's clean pain, which is the normal grief. And then there's dirty pain. And that's when pain is shamed. And unfortunately, our culture does do that. We have little capacity in this country for grief. You know, if you're still working, you get 3 days. Bereavement. That's if you have benefits. Of course, if you don't have benefits, you don't get any time. You're expected to work. And our friends and family sometimes rush us too, right? Are you still upset about this? When are you going to get with it? Sometimes they don't even talk about our spouse. They don't even bring up the name or a child. They don't ask. The world just keeps going, and you're just standing around like a bystander. I have a little story. I know this woman who, she lost her spouse, and there was a group of people that got together, and all the men, including her husband, would go fishing together. They were fishing buddies. So she was with the wives, and this was like 6 months after her husband died, and the wives were joking, I'm a fishing widow again. I'm a fishing widow today, laughing, thinking it's funny, and she was just so hurt that they didn't even recognize who was sitting in the group, and that, you know, indeed, she is a widow, and it's not funny. So grief comes in waves. It rushes over us. It engulfs us in memories and sorrow. We feel like we're drowning. But like the ocean, we need to respect its power. And eventually, we learn to swim. But I work with a lot of people, and they will talk about the waves. Like they'll have a bad morning, and they just feel flooded. Maybe they got triggered by a song or a show that they used to watch. So it comes in waves. And it comes in bursts. It jumps up and surprises us sometimes. We don't even see it coming. We miss things we didn't even know we'd miss. So you want to be patient with yourself. Dr. Wolf said that he thinks grief bursts are your loved ones saying, don't forget me. And we don't have to worry about that. We don't forget them. I work with children, and they do really worry about that. They worry about forgetting. But they don't forget either. So grief and mental health. So grief symptoms mimic depression and anxiety. There are sleep and appetite problems. There's thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore. There's panic attacks. There's a lot of repetition in talking of sorrows, stories, regrets. And you feel like you're not yourself anymore sometimes. So that's why I think if you're to see a therapist, you want somebody that has some experience working with grief. Because someone that doesn't might see some of these as something a little bit more serious than actually, not that grief isn't serious, but they might decide, oh, well, she's got, she's really depressed, maybe, she's thinking she doesn't want to get up in the morning, So you have to be a little careful, but not too careful. Most therapists are really good, but it does overlap. Okay, so grief and mourning. So they call it mourning and then active mourning. So that's kind of when you're moving out of maybe the initial stage and you're starting to do more things to say, I need to put some words to this grief I'm feeling. And one of it is to join a support group. I don't know if you have support groups in this big, beautiful community, but they're a really good thing, a grief support group. And a caregiver support group is also another good idea. So it's a place to find like-minded friends who discuss their grief, their loved ones, and their fears. Emotional support is always helpful. It's okay to cry. Everyone does. Or maybe you decide to go see a counselor. This is also a way to actively mourn. A therapist who listens and provides validation without criticism and without a rush can feel extremely helpful. It's a lonely journey without a companion by your side. The work of grief is complicated by previous losses and previous bouts of depression and anxiety. So if you're someone who has suffered from some depressive episodes in your life and then you have a major loss, it's liable to get more complicated. Or more, anxiety is same. A lot of times previous losses weren't mourned, and so that all of those feelings come up from the other one. The trauma of the type of loss is also important. So suicide, homicide, sudden death, and car accidents complicate grief. Suicide is all about why. That's the question that you ask for years. And homicide is all about feeling robbed, having someone stolen from you. If anybody's ever been robbed, it's a terrible feeling to lose what you love. And then, of course, the loss of a child or a grandchild, because that's not the normal way. They're supposed to grieve us. We're not supposed to grieve them. So it's a flipping of the natural order of things. Insufficient support from others. So if you're not getting the help you need, or you're lonely, or you don't have any immediate family in the area, your grief and mental health are going to be more compromised. Because it is important. We need each other. And then there's what they call disenfranchised loss, which might be pet loss. I think most people understand pet loss nowadays. But it used to be that was kind of a loss that, oh, it was just a dog. What's the problem? Partner loss, so LGBTQ loss. Sibling loss. A lot of times if you lose a brother or sister, you don't get quite the support you might get. But sibling loss is very painful because you have grown. It's like your closest friend. You've been there since the beginning with each other. Or it's complicated, and it's that painful because it's a complicated relationship. And then caregiving loss. A lot of times people will see someone's maybe taking care of somebody for a year, and they think, oh, you must feel relieved. Well, that's part of it. But I also feel guilty because I feel relieved. And I also miss them no matter what. And caregivers grow very close with the ones they're taking care of. Okay. Mental health therapies help people who suffer from unremitting guilt and unremitting regrets. So in addition to the other symptoms, those are really things that you want to find a safe place to talk. And maybe you have a friend or a relative that this is something you can talk about over coffee, which is wonderful. And maybe you don't, or maybe you don't want to talk to your friend or relative. But in any case, it impacts your mental health. Okay, the other piece is we start to take better care of ourselves. This is a part of active mourning. We reach out to people. We make plans. Instead of looking and going, I don't know, I can't commit to anything. We say, all right, maybe in 3 weeks I can go out to lunch with my friend. We honor our love through the expression of our grief. We honor our courage. We decide that grief is not the enemy. It's a companion on our journey. Okay, mourning and meaning. It's all about finding meaning in this life. So maybe we plant a tree in his honor. Maybe we contribute to a cause in his or her honor. We create a memory book. We create a memory box for our children and grandchildren. We create art with his clothes. You've seen these beautiful things people can do with needle and thread. I mean, it's just amazing. They make blankets out of t-shirts and wall hangings. And the other thing is to include him or her in the holiday. People hate holidays when they're grieving. And they just white knuckle it. Have you heard this? I'll get through it somehow. And really, the thing you want to do is you want to plan for it. So you want to, if Thanksgiving is a hard holiday because your spouse or loved Thanksgiving, then maybe you leave an empty place for him at the table. Maybe you put like a paper placemat down and all the grandchildren can write a note to Papa, Daddy, or Mommy. Or maybe you just go around with teenagers and say, tell me a happy memory you have. We're going to start Thanksgiving a little different. Mother's Day, Father's Day. These are all hard days, but you want to plan something. Because that's you making a plan instead of just gritting through it. You know, it actually is something that you do and then you feel better because you did it. So maybe we commit to a walk in the woods with our friend. Maybe we say, all right, once a month, let's take a walk. It doesn't have to be in the woods. It could be just around the block. Maybe we go outside and enjoy the spring flowers because their lives are short too, you know. And they need all the admiration they can get. Maybe we spend time with our grandchildren and cherish the circle of life. Maybe we decide to continue to live this life and love ourselves. With each new day, maybe we begin to believe that I can be brave enough to make it. Love never dies. Tears are only love in liquid form. You have a right to treasure your memories. You have a right to hope. Thank you. So are there any questions or comments or?
I got one.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I'm here because my mother has Alzheimer's, and I would say on average 3 to 4 times a week we have to go through the dead relatives. Because she will ask me, are my brothers still alive? And then she goes through them all and she grieves all over again. I'd like to know what I can do to help mitigate that pain. If there's anything I can do,
That's a good
other
question.
than what I'm already doing.
Could you repeat the question?
The question is that she visits her mother.
Well, I take care of my mother.
She
so-
takes care of her mother who has Alzheimer's, and every time she goes there, Mom wants to know, is my brother still alive? Is my husband still alive?
All of them.
All of the people that are no longer alive. And so you're honest with her, I guess.
Oh, yeah, we go through, when did they die? How did they die? How old were they? Sometimes she remembers yesterday it was, are my brother still alive? And then we had to cry. But I still have my sister. And, you know, and then she went down the list and we did that for about an hour. And then I segue into what I call a palate cleanser and find something humorous to watch or find something else to distract her from it. But I don't know how to keep her from going through that newness of every day. They're all dead, and it's heartbreaking.
Yes, it is, I'm sure.
So I'm just wondering.
Before I
if
jump in, does anybody else have any ideas? I mean, my first thought was, I might ask her what she remembers.
And I do that.
Okay, and does she answer that?
Sometimes she does. I'm finding that repetition with her, it seems to be, I don't know, creating new pathways. And after a lot of repetition, weeks, sometimes months, then she'll remember, or halfway remember, and then a couple weeks later, she's got it all. But as far as the constant asking about the deaths, that has not changed.
Does she ask it almost right away as soon as you get there, or does it?
Well, no, she lives with me.
Oh, she lives with you?
Yeah, so this is an ongoing occurrence, like sometimes it's every day. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 times a week, so.
I don't know if this would be good or not, but sitting down with her and making a memory book and like have a page for each person with their picture and maybe there some special things about them and the date that they were born and the date that they...
Yeah, we've started that.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We have boxes and boxes of pictures that we go through on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's great.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
What is the harm in not telling her?
I don't know. I mean, I might try to find some diversion. Oh, Mama, do we have to get sad again today? Let's watch a
And
movie.
sometimes I do, we joke a lot, so she
Okay,
still
good.
has a very good sense of humor, you know, intermixed with the intermittent grief.
I mean, that's the sad part is she grieves. I mean, she's,
That's what I'm saying, you know, I know that she's feeling the pain just like it happened. And I just thought you had a magic wand I could wave.
I wanted one of those.
Okay.
To you, I mean, you could say that to you, does it hurt inside, Mom? And she might say yes.
That's good.
That
Yeah,
might
yeah,
be the
yeah.
answer, Mom.
Feel out how
She
she's
feels
actually
pain.
physically feeling. That'll help.
She's familiar with the feeling, so you could ask about, how does it feel inside?
Yeah.
Is it painful today? Yeah, it's painful.
Okay.
You know, you might have your answer to that question, Mom. Because you don't want her to feel worse. I mean, she's got such
No.
limited time.
But I
right?
also
She's-
cannot lie to her.
Well, I appreciate that.
You know, she's an adult. She's aware that she has an issue. She forgets that she does. But then we revisit it.
Good for you.
I mean, I can't, she's not a child. I'm not going to treat her like one, so. Okay,
Good for you. Did that answer your question?
thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. I just had a question on the support groups that you were talking about. In those support groups, are they, do you recommend that they are facilitated by a professional, or can like-minded people manage that on their own?
Well,
And,
I think-
sorry, could you repeat the question again, just?
oh, okay. The question is about support groups. Question is about support groups. Can like-minded people run the support group on their own, or is it a better idea to have them facilitated? Is that right? I think that it's true both ways. You know, I think that, you know, I'm partial to facilitated support groups myself, but I think that some people are just excellent, just natural healers. And they've been doing it a long time, and that they can be wonderful. They can put together a wonderful group, make sure everybody gets heard, and you stay on topic. So I think it depends on the people that are in the group, how long it's been going on, and kind of who's there, the personalities. It's worth trying.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do those support groups typically focus more on the death of a loved one versus, you know, maybe, I guess a divorce would have a separate group, or like you said, like it could be a loss of anyone in the family, but it's always a death, not a mental health loss or something.
That makes the most sense because, you know, the groups I facilitate, you know, divorce is very different. And people that are grieving the loss of a spouse don't like being compared to, well, I'm divorced, so we have a lot in common. No, they don't. You know, death is very different from divorce. So a grief support group should be for those that have lost someone to death. And I don't think it really matters about if it's a spouse or a child. And if it's a big enough community and you have enough for 2 groups, that would be great, but usually that's not the case. So you can have people that have lost children and grandchildren in a group with people who love wives and husbands. Yes, ma'am.
But you could also have, to me, a death could be moving from an area, or your friends that you've had for a very long time, the death of a husband, a divorce, or any of that. That's all, to me, it causes some type of grief.
Yes.
And then when you do lose a spouse, it just compounds it to me.
I agree with that. I agree with it, yeah. I mean, life isn't easy, you know, we go through all kinds of changes and we all grieve along the way. And in every case, it's important to talk about it and acknowledge it and respect yourself for having those feelings. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
On the subject of anticipatory grief, I'm finding more and more the older I get, the more I worry about losing the longtime friends, and I know it's going to happen. Do you have any tools to help deal with that in advance?
Are these friends that are struggling with mental health or physical health
No, I'm
problems?
just worried.
Just
I know that
generally.
my circle is going to be reduced dramatically and regularly at some point. And I'm sure it has something to do with accepting that my years are numbered also at this point.
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's about keeping the friendships alive. Maybe creating a little book for your friendship. If you have a really tight little group, you could put a book of memories together. I love memory books. Celebrate together, toast each other with ice water at the restaurant. Be happy you're there, mark it. Talk about it out loud.
Yeah.
I'm scared of what's going to happen. Maybe you could find a way to have some humor about it. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a good question. Yes, ma'am.
Our church at Lakewood Woods Church, I'm in a group of grieving. It's called Grief Share.
Grief share,
It's a study, and they go through a book and they...
Okay. How's it going? Do you like it?
I like it. And with all these people, we all have the same thing happen in our life.
Good for you. How long have you been going?
I've been probably 3 months.
Okay.
To the new, she started with another book
Yeah.
earlier, but yeah, they just started a new one.
But anybody we have a group of about 24 or more, So, you can come and join the group anytime within that period. And I think anybody here who lives close to the church or just here in the area might want to try it.
Right.
It's on Monday night at 7 at Woods Church. And the choir-
Every week? Every week?
Yes, we
Wow.
do.
That's great.
When you lose your spouse, and people say to you, I understand, or, oh, that in the beginning, it used to bother me, because that person that was saying it to me, I know they meant well, but their spouse was still alive. So you can't really talk on that level. So what is a good thing or a good way to say that to someone when they've lost their
That's
spouse?
a good question. So that's one of those things that, that's the other problem with our culture. We really don't know what to say when someone dies. We're just like bumbling around. You would think we didn't have any, I don't know. And that's one thing, I understand how you feel. And, it's impossible because your feelings are your feelings and their feelings are their feelings. And there's different kind of marriages, some marriages, there hasn't been a lot of love in them for a long time. So to say to someone, I know how you feel, when you have no clue how I feel. So a retort, that's what I think you're asking me, like, what do you say back to them?
No, just well, that too, but it's like people don't, they mean good, they mean well, to ask you or to
Yes.
say, oh, I understand what you're feeling, oh, I'm so sorry that, for your loss, and that's fine, but then they add, like, but they don't understand because they still have their spouse. So what I'm asking you probably is, what is a good way to say something to someone? I know what to say to someone who has lost their spouse as well. But for someone who doesn't understand and they mean well, what can they say? How can they say that
How can they say that?
to the person that lost their spouse?
I don't understand how you feel, but, I'm with you, and I care about you, and I loved your husband, he was a wonderful man, or I admired your marriage, or things they actually know about, rather than things they think they know. I think that's the way to go. It's heartbreaking to me.
I guess it's just the part when they say, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
That's just
No,
not.
you don't.
Right. But they mean well.
Yes, you do.
And you could say that to them, I know you mean well, and I just can't tell you how complicated my feelings are right now. I know you mean well, though. I have a friend who lost his wife, and the neighbor came up to him and said, I'm so sorry to hear about your wife. We know how you feel. We lost our dog.
Oh, no.
And so he said, I know you're not comparing the loss of my wife to the loss of your dog. I know you're not doing that, right?
They just didn't know what to say.
And the guy was like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, and then he kind of backed up. But that's how insensitive some people can be.
They just don't.
Without realizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking they're doing something really great, and they make it worse. That's the dirty pain we talked about, this sense of, do I have to go over this? Do I have to justify how I feel right now to make you feel better? I'm the one hurting. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
How can you help a young person who's going through the process, who may not understand as much as we as adults do? But for whom it's been very traumatic.
Right. Well, I think, how young? Are these young adults? Or
14.
14. Well, I'll tell you, there is a wonderful resource in Virginia. It's called Comfort Zone Camp. We've got a big online presence, Comfort Zone Camp. I volunteered there for probably 15 years. And it's for children and teenagers. And it's a weekend-long camp. And it's run by, they have healing circles, they have therapy all weekend, they have fun all weekend. Because children grieve different than adults. Children can only handle so much of a blue mood at a time. They want to run, and so sometimes you'll see like a little 8-year-old running and the father will say, well, he seems fine to me. I mean, everything's going great. But that's the way they grieve. They can't handle it. And then you'll see them later and, maybe he's twirling his hair or crying. So it comes and goes with children. And so this camp is just extraordinary of being able to say, all right, we're going to talk about it here, and now we're going to go do something silly and fun and have a fire pit and talk and laugh and sing silly songs. And then tomorrow we're going to have a memorial service where we honor the person we loved. And it's for children who've lost siblings and parents. And they group the kids by age and usually by loss, different kinds of loss.
Where is it?
Well, they have camps all over the country, actually, but they have camps, the headquarters is in Richmond. And they have several camps in Virginia. So it would really be worth looking into that, because sometimes, kids, especially 14-year-olds, they don't want to cry. They're ashamed of tears, especially if it's a boy. And they don't want to burden their parents who are already struggling. And so they keep it to themselves. And then they go to school and their other friends are criticizing their parents and they're criticizing their family, and they're thinking to themselves, you have no clue. So it's a wonderful experience. And sometimes kids will go to a counselor. It's important to let the counselor at school know, I think, if they don't already know, that he's had a loss or she's had a loss. So they can, call him into the office every once in a while and give him a donut or something and make him feel good. But it's kind of unexplainable. I mean, we don't have very good answers either as adults. I mean, it's kind of like, why does this happen? Why do bad things happen to good people? I mean, there's been a million books written on it.
Well, I think as you're going through it, I was raised on Kubler-Ross, so I had a model that I could relate to, I'm going through this right now. Mm-hmm. And the kids don't have that kind of thing, or any other.
Right, they're just kind of lost in the... So Kubler-Ross, she's a genius. Her steps of grief were actually for people that were dying. So those steps were really created for someone that gets a terminal illness diagnosis. They are somewhat modified for grieving that we're talking about today. But it's not a real clear linear thing. It's not these, I did the denial, I'm out of that, now I move into this. It's more of like it's the wave, it's the grief wave. You just flooded with this stuff. And so I think a lot of times with teenagers, it's about helping them cope. I think, art's nice, journals are nice, activities nice. They need to burn steam off. A 14-year-old boy, they probably have a lot of energy, usually. They need to go places where they can move. I like journaling, but I don't know about 14-year-old boys, but I think journaling is good, or art. Sometimes boys can be pretty creative there. I think believing in him, you're going to be okay, sweetheart. We're going to get through this together. I'm with you.
And I suppose to normalize the process, what you're feeling is, it's okay to feel this way right now?
Yes. Everything's okay. Even your anger. Everything. A lot of times adults get upset when, like your son or grandson will be angry. It's kind of like, of course you're angry. Of course you're angry. This isn't fair. Why did he have to go? You know, so validating their feelings. It's wide open. If you need somebody to talk to, you know, maybe you can find someone. Is there someone in his life that he's really close to that he can talk to about his grief?
I don't know. And his family is very close, but I don't know beyond that.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, that's where it starts, so that's good. But everything's okay. You know, if he starts to talk about wanting to hurt himself, then that's not okay. That's when you seek mental health care. You might seek it anyway.
They are doing that.
Oh, good. Well, that'll be very helpful to him. Does that answer your question? Okay, yes, ma'am.
What if someone does not want to seek mental health care? They're not in love with their loss and their grief. What then?
Well, I think you keep hanging with them. And you encourage them to get involved with things you're doing. You invite them places. I mean, I think we all need people that come to the door and go, you're going to dinner with us tonight. At some point, it's kind of like, you need to do this. We need to live. It kind of depends on how much time has passed. You know, the first year is very difficult. And the second year can be just as bad or worse because everything's happening again and they're still not
People
here.
start to forget your grief. They used
Yes,
to have it.
exactly. And so, being aware of where they're at in the process, asking them about it, how's it going? You know, search for strengths. That's a therapeutic kind of thing. So it looks like you cut the grass. It looks great. Wow, you got some energy today, huh? That's super. Wow, I love that garden over there. You know, so you encourage that way. Believe in them. I believe you're going to make it. I know it's painful, but you're going to make it. Some people are bitter. And they probably were bitter before. So, like your point, you know, it gets worse, you know, the losses pile up and they push it away. You know, it's okay to ask for help. It's it's becoming more and more popular. When I was first started my career 40 years ago, there was really a lot of stigma. But, you know, most of the people I saw were court ordered. And now they come in on their own. So it's even men are very anxious to say, hey, I need somebody I can talk to. Their wives might be getting tired of listening to them complaining and beef, and it's kind of like, I need somebody to talk to that's going to listen to me. So hopefully whoever this person is will take your lead on that, but it's really okay. Men are hard because they want to be tough all the time, you know. Can't let that guard down. Somebody will think they're weak. And it really takes a lot of strength to talk about your feelings. It takes a lot of courage. And that might be a nice thing to say to this person if it's a male, you know. You've got a lot of courage. You don't want to be afraid of feelings. They're just feelings. They come and go. Any more? Well, I can't thank you enough for being here today. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope it was helpful or hope you enjoyed it. I did bring some cards.
Thank you so much, Helen. That was wonderful and very helpful, very moving. It was really great. I appreciate it very much. So what we're handing out right now is some mental health resources. So as Helen was saying, I mean, we all have health, right? We all have physical health, good, bad, in the middle, something like that. And we can have physical health conditions like heart conditions and diabetes. And so true with our mental health, you know, again, we all have mental health. And sometimes we have mental health conditions, be it depression or some of the other diagnoses that you've probably heard of through the years. So given that this is Mental Health Awareness Month, in addition to Older Adults Month, we wanted to bring this presentation and also share with you some resources. So if I was just going to go through the list very quickly with you. So of course there are many, many more resources out there in the world. But NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has information on their website and programs like support groups and classes. Also Mental Health America. The National Education Alliance for Borderline Personality Disorder is also got some fabulous information, even though, you know, you may be caring about somebody who does not have that official diagnosis. The tools and information that they share are really helpful for people who may be really struggling with different mental health diagnoses. There's always the National Institute on Mental Health, which is one of the NIH institutes. They've got lots of research and other information on their website. And then somebody mentioned Grief Share. So the Lake of the Woods Church is going to be starting up another Grief Share group. It meets for 13 weeks. It's kind of a combination class and support group. They know that the next group will start in August. It'll meet on Mondays from 7 to 8:45 p.m. There's no cost, but they don't know the exact Monday that it's going to start yet, so stay tuned. But it sounds like a really great group. Let's see here. And as far as finding a provider, so again, you know, there's many ways to get to a provider. One is to check with your medical providers. Maybe your general practitioner or internist knows of someone that they can refer you to. You can always check with your insurance company. At least that's a starting place. It may not, you know, get you to the final person, but they can provide a list. Psychology Today is an online database, and it's a really great site. You can go and see who the providers are in your area and read a little bit about their specialties and their backgrounds, and you know, there's a picture. You can get a sense. You can get a sense of who they are. And then Encompass Community Supports, which is our local community services board, and they have services for people with mental health conditions, intellectual disabilities, and substance abuse. So if you think that they might be helpful, there's a website. So that's what's on the sheet. So I hope that you find that helpful. And then just to talk a little bit about, I'm going to have to turn my phone back on to get the exact details, but you know, LOWLINC is such a wonderful organization. I'm so glad to be here and have joined the organization 2 years ago. And what LOWLINC offers is so much about what Helen was talking about, which is connecting with other people, getting out and having fun, playing, whether that's playing bingo or jumping on the minibus to go to the theater, and just you're not alone when you're a part of LOWLINC. And it's just so incredible to see how well people connect and have fun together at LOWLINC. I did want to talk a little bit, to follow up on Margaret's question, about an upcoming event that we're having. It's actually a series of events, caregiver discussion. So if it is open to the community, anybody can attend, and Margaret, you can jump in because this is hosted by the Health and Wellness Committee, which Margaret chairs, and you can tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but on May 21st from 1 to 2:30 p.m. right here, caregivers are invited to join this LOWLINC facilitated discussion group, share and learn with other caregivers. And please let others know about it because, like I said, it's open to anybody in the community. Let's see here. Oh, I wanted to share what's coming up next month for our speaker series. So next month we're going to share some joy together, hope, joy. And we're going to have a music therapist come and talk a little bit about music in our life and how important it is and what a difference it makes. I know that's the only way I get my house clean is if I crank up the tunes. And but you know, it brings back memories, which can be bittersweet. But it's just really an important part of our lives, and sometimes it fades away. You know, I just finally gave in to Spotify. My daughter and my grandson have been like, you got to do Spotify. And it's been awesome. I have great playlists. But anyways, we'll have a sing-along as part of that. So I hope that you'll come and experience that with us. And again, these monthly meetings are always open to the community, so, you know, please come.
You don't have to sing loud.
Yeah, you can lip sync.
When I was 13, I think I could take my boy.
Right.
Come along.
Right. So, any other announcements from anybody that they want to share about LOWLINC events coming up? I also did want to mention, because Helen mentioned this too, about getting out and walking. So most Fridays, again, right here, we have our walk and talk group, and it is a fabulous group of people. And so we walk either, I say we, Margaret and the group walks either around the path if it's nice out, or indoors here in the gym if it's not so nice out. So it's always good to double check though, because sometimes, you know, there's an event here or something, we have to make changes. But generally it's every Friday, 10 a.m., right?
10:30.
10:30, oops, okay, 10:30.
You come at 10, you'll be all tired out by the time. And I would say that the next 2 weeks, I think, are outside only because of the play.
Oh, okay, yeah, because of the LOWA players, it'll be outside the next 2 weeks. Okay, great. Okay, we have all kinds of materials over there on the table if you're interested. Oh, and then we also have a survey. So we've updated our survey. If you wouldn't mind filling that out, we really appreciate it. It helps us give feedback to our presenter. It helps us as we design the program and come up with new ideas. And so thank you for taking the time to do that. All right, any other questions? All right. Well, yes, thank you again. It was truly wonderful, thank you.